My dear viewers, beginning today is the official Alliteration Gaming Patreon and channel members. Throughout my Patreon, we've got quite a few tiers you can check out in order to gain special perks and even commission videos that you'd like to see me upload onto the channel. Every tier includes a shout out on my supporter card at the beginning of all of my videos, along with the benefits of the tier itself. Following that, you can now also join the Alliteration Nation by becoming a channel member on the YouTube side of things. Pledging your subscription here as a member of the channel is going to grant you the same shout out on my supporter card as all the Patreon tiers do, as well as access to the members only channel on my Discord. You'll gain a member badge that will level up as you stay subscribed and access to my exclusive emotes when I stream on YouTube. If you're interested in checking out the Patreon, I'm going to have the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below, as well as the link to my Discord should you want to join that as well. And if you want to become a channel member, the big, beautiful join button is front and center on my homepage right here. And if you do decide to support the channel in any way whatsoever, know that I am unimaginably grateful, and I can't wait to provide you with even more top-notch content at my trademark top speed. Additionally, it's time for the return of the referral code. If you're new here and you're just getting into the game, you've got to make an account on the Universe's gaming network. When you're signing up, you can use my exclusive referral code Alliteration to let Jasco know that I brought you on board, which directly supports me and my work. Having an account on the UGN site is going to allow you to sign up for tournaments, participate in events, locate stores that support the game near you, and much, much more. Playing in events and or mailing in pack wrappers is actually going to accrue loyalty points onto your account, which you'll then be able to redeem for exclusive promo cards in the mail for absolutely free. An account on here is an integral part of playing this game, so make sure you sign up and you use my code Alliteration to help me continue doing what I love. I would really appreciate the support. You guys absolutely killed it on the last one with all of the signups, and I am really excited to run it back with you all. Now, let's get on to the video. Good evening, my dear viewers. Welcome to another Alliteration Gaming video. My name's Levi, and today we're going to be doing a build a deck with Brian Connolly over from the Patreon, and he's tasked me with helping him refine an all-symbol weapons Mei list. Now, a symbol I'm very familiar with, packages I'm very familiar with, however, the character is pretty new territory for me. Now, while she hasn't been played much since set 2, Mei has gotten access to a lot of really cool new tools since then in both set 3 and set 4. So let's hop right in and see how I can help Brian refine this Mei deck here. This list is a very tight 50 card list with super balanced block zones, so kind of just shoot me with what this deck is all about, and then more particularly what you want my help with.
So what the deck is about is consistency, in the sense of, you know, people are always trying to get their deck size down to have a consistent deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want to run the minimum deck size. Well, Mei gets to go, I'm going to run less than the minimum deck size and also draw a bunch of cards.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, why not see how far you can push that? To try and turn her into kind of a bit of as much of an aggro deck as I can, because you know, taking the math into account, you remove Box Full of Babies, you're at 46 cards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because our character says go and remove those 4. We're at a tight 50. Yeah, we have a 46 card deck.
Exactly. So with the 30 non-attacks and 16 attacks, you're just slightly above that, 1/3 of the cards in the deck being attacks. And so I found that it's not bad consistency wise. It's just that sometimes the attacks can be a little bit weenie, and I can have trouble against people who are maybe a bit beefier.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's been fun to play, for sure.
I definitely see the concept. So the big thing about finding, like, you know, consistency in this game, it's a weird term, right? Because it's a matter of what do you actually want to find, right? We can take Mei and we can make this 46 card deck if we've got, like, you know, this like really busted combo that we can just, you know, find really easily, very consistently, and then win the game that way. I don't think we really have something like that in our deck. Now, there's a lot to be said still just for consistency in general, right? You have specific things that you want to see, right? I mean, to put my experience into the equation, I've been striving to make really tight, like 60, 64 card eraser lists, because when you open Spooky, that character is really busted, right? So, like, when you have stuff like that, that element is very important. So are there like specific things you're trying to see really early on that have kind of inspired this mission?
It's actually the binding cloth precision, because she is more than happy to play that at a 7 and be able to put between, if it's turn 2 on and she went second, 2 damage on it, plus it's 6, it's 8 at the end of a string. And if you're getting a good draw of your attacks, she can. I've wanted to basically spam out an insane amount for a 5-hand sizer, so try to keep the other stuff low, get a lot of 0 drops in there if I can, or 1s, and just basically rely on that 28 health, almost kind of like Ojiro does, to just be like, do you have it? And then if not, the backswing is where I'm going to get you. The create capture nets just give her like advantage, because it chains out well.
Right.
But I don't know, like the attack lineup, other than the binding cloth precision, is something that although I like it, it's like I said, it feels a little bit underwhelming at times. I don't know if the binding cloth assault's necessary, but getting to draw 2 cards is just good.
Yeah. So I think, I guess, like, the main concern I maybe have, with this kind of view is the, Mei Hatsume. Like, one of the best things about this character is making it to turn 5, and then you're just a 9-hander for the rest of the game, and you just play that late game way, way better than basically any other character does, because you're just a 9/28 at that point. Maybe if you lost some health getting there, but the fact is, you're seeing 9 cards a turn, and that just lets you do really, really unfair things for those late game strings. So
with this deck, what I found is that I'm not generally making it, because of the card count, to that turn.
Yeah, do you deck out? do you deck out a lot?
I haven't decked out, but I get close.
Okay.
So it comes down to, I'm either about to deck out and my opponent kills me, or I've killed them.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that, like, I want to, I don't mind a bigger deck with her, but at the same time, there's part of me that wants to have a version of the deck that is just that tight 46 cards that I can play around with to see if I can make it work.
Okay.
But like, as a proper functional deck, I'm sure she can be bigger.
Yeah, I think that is possibly a better route to go, but also I don't want to, like, if that's like your concept here, right? The point of this is for me to take your deck and make it better, not to turn it into a whole new deck, if that's not what you want. Right. But we can probably find like some kind of middle ground there. I'm definitely not gonna try to, leave you with like a 70 card pile by the end of this. So we can find some middle ground between, like, getting, still staying within like your cool concept, but also not getting like too crazy.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like like I said, I don't mind because I know this deck, if it was bigger, is going to last longer, and she could go further, right? Like you said, get to that turn 5. But with the idea of just trying to aggro your opponent out by being like, yeah, I'm a 7-hand sizer that's got 28 health, and I'm drawing all of my attacks very consistently, and I'm getting to that binding cloth precision, and I can play it on a 7, no problem. Then it's felt really good when you're like, yeah, that's an attack that does a bunch of damage.
I definitely don't blame you for wanting to find a really, really quick and consistent route to finding a way to kill people with all symbol weapons, because I've been trying to do that for like 6 months now, and it's pretty tough. Now, thankfully, set 4 has dropped and given us some pieces that make that a little bit easier. So let's scroll down a bit here. So I've got a little cluster of attacks here that are all going to kind of do different things. First of all, the big thing about your character is that to start drawing her extra cards, you have to poke them. That is not all weapons' greatest strength. Most of the time, you're needing to play, unless you find Capture Net. Capture Net is like a really solid poke, especially if you catch someone at the low block. Otherwise, you're having to commit like at least 2 cards to really put like a, hey, this is probably going to find value as an attack, and I'm not just playing it just to like draw my 2 cards, right? So that's where you're going to see I've got this Invincible Clasp and this Nebulous Stare in. These are, of course, not weapons. However, they are really, really sick attacks that you can just throw down and then say, hey, I'm just here to draw my cards off of babies. If you want to block this or not, it's up to you. It's going to deal half damage. I'm going to get some value out of it either way. I have always kind of like, if you see, a lot of the, before she really fell off in set 2, a lot of the life Mei lists were really into playing a few throws, just because really good for getting that early game tempo and not having to commit super hard to draw your cards from babies, but also still finding some value, instead of just like, I played this one attack, it did nothing, but it let me draw my baby's card, so I guess I broke even, right? That doesn't feel like fantastic. Nebulous also just becomes a foundation, which is very sick. Then I've got a couple flow cards. I've got Netgun Surprise as just a little more stun to put on our board. Being able to go like Capture Net into Netgun or vice versa is really strong. Stun 4 is going to put down most of their board, and then you're kind of free to just beat them up a little bit.
Yeah.
Alternatively, if you're finding trouble stringing quite a lot and passing your checks, Whiplash is a very good card. Requires you to be a little more all in on the combo train, because combo, if you're not opening with Capture Net, can be a little awkward, right? Because you want to play this one ASAP, right? Because it's going to not count towards progressive. So you really want it to be the second move, but the only combo that you really want to open with is Capture Net. I mean, you could play like a vanilla Precision, but that doesn't feel great. So that one's a little harder to play with, but it is an option. And then I've got kill cards in here for you. Total Erasure is crazy. 4 high for 5, 4 diff with powerful 3. That's just nuts. Now, damage is not something that your character strives for very much, right? You get to put damage just by flipping a foundation. Everything becomes flip 1, put 3-4 damage on your move. So you're not really starving for damage, so I don't know if you find much value out of the powerful here. On the other hand, though, Needle Stab. This card, this is a Hatsume Mei card. This is literally a Hatsume Mei card. It has your 3 symbols on it, and it says when you're a 9-hander and you have all of these foundations in your hand, they all just become raw stats. And it's a low block, something that just doesn't exist much on the all symbol.
Yep. Yeah. I actually, so with Needle Stab specifically, when you were having internet troubles, I was just looking at stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's just going electromagnetic stomp out, Needle Stab in.
Yeah, Stomp. I mean, Stomp is very good. I do like Stomp quite a lot, especially with things like USJ in our deck. It's pretty nice. It doesn't interact with top pro heroes. Obviously, interacts with our babies. I mean, it's a hard sell, I guess, right? I mean, what are you? So you talked about. Obviously, the Capture Net's really good. Capture Net's very important to all weapons, just as a combo that you can open with to start getting your other things off, right?
Yeah.
And then the Binding Cloth Assault, I think I'm kind of with you on this one being in the middle of it, because like drawing 2 cards is really cool, but we have to play 2 cards to do it. And early game, that's not super optimal, because we really just want to play like one move, get our draws off, and then go from there. By the time you're playing the strings that this card wants to see, you probably have most of your babies online, and that draw 2 is just not as valuable.
Yeah, I have noticed that, like, so one problem with this attack lineup is mostly low end than the one mid. So once people realize that, they just hold the mid blocks, right?
Right.
But if I have something like the Needle Stab replacing the Electromagnetic Stomp, which, to be honest, has been a very mid attack for me in terms of, like, everybody's like, oh yeah, I've got the low block for that. Boom. Yeah, you're not getting it into your momentum. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, it feels very bad when this thing gets blocked.
Exactly. So, whereas if it's Needle Stab, now they've got to hold a high and a bunch of lows, right? So it feels like a little bit, that feels like that could be a little bit better. And I mean, Binding Cloth could probably just be Total Erasure Binding, because I don't have a momentum out in this deck.
It could be. Now, I mean, I feel a little bit better about the Assault if we kick the Stomp out, because then we're actually playing mono weapons. I think the Assault could be a really good 2 of. Because, like, it's really good late game, right? It's really good late game, but we don't want to draw it super early.
I mean, given that the block zone on it's the same as Total Erasure, it could be 2 and 2.
Yeah. You also don't need, like, a ton of Total Erasures in your deck, right?
No.
So, like, the Stomps can just become our Needle Stabs, and then we can make 2 Binding Cloth Assault and 2 Total Erasure Binding. So it also doesn't change our number at all. I guess is there anything? Are there other attacks? Because like I mean, if there are not other things that you want to put in your deck, you really don't need to be striving to make the deck bigger. That number is like truly just up to you. Are there things you find that are lacking? Are there like cards you see that you're like, wow, I really want to put these cards in my deck?
So I think the only one that's down there where it's either Nebulous Stare to help with that, like, oh, I've got turn 2, I've got to build, right?
Yeah.
Right, I get a build off of it. The only problem with this, it doesn't really have a block on it. +3 is rough. But it's a throw.
Yeah, +3 low is not fantastic. Generally, most of your throws you're going to find don't have great block mods. Yeah. I do like that clasp is a little bit better. Generally, the all symbol is really starved for low blocks. But we've actually got the main reason is that most of the time, a lot of the cards you want to play on like these all decks, a lot of their staple foundations are high blocks, but Mei plays a really weird foundation lineup as opposed to most of those because she doesn't really look for damage on her attacks. So there's a lot of things that you kind of just end up don't playing. So zones I really wouldn't worry about as much. I would mostly just think about making sure that we have the attacks that we want inside of our deck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what would you suggest? So let's say we're going to turn this into a 60 card deck, right? What would you add the Nebulous, or would you add the Invincible class?
I would add the Nebulous. I think it just adds more value to our deck, especially like it feels so bad to, like check bad on that opening move and go, oh my god, this isn't going to do anything but get me my draw, and I'm like vulnerable now. Nebulous becoming a foundation is just very nice. Also, like we're really good at blocking. We're the all symbol. We've got, speed reduction out the wazoo if we really want it. The zone's not terrible, but we're also probably just like jamming it nonstop either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably fine. So like taking it up to a 60 card deck, because the idea here that I have is like, okay, if we got a 60 card deck, then I can also, if I know what I'm cutting to get back down to where I'm happy with it, then it makes it really easy to just try things out and be like, hey, how does this work?
Yeah, I think if you were to put in the Nebulous, for one, we put in 4 of them. I actually think Needle Stab is probably a fine 3 of. I don't think you ever want to see more than 2 of this card, or I'm sorry, more than 1 of this card. You don't really, you don't really want to draw 2 copies. You draw 2 copies, and you're like, well, one of these doesn't have text now because I can just use the other as much as I really want. So I think it's like a fine 3 of. Then I think if you go the route of the Nebulous, I would probably just cut the Binding Cloth Assaults.
Okay.
I think you cut the Binding Cloth Assaults and then just stuff in 4 Nebulous, because then like when you draw it like later on in the game, it kind of like clogs up your lines. But if you look at, I guess it also clogs up our total erasure a little bit.
The total erasure is only there, to be honest, as a momentum dump.
Yeah.
To me, like it's do I get the combo enhance? Great. But by that point in the string, I imagine that they have either used all of their stuff to, or like I'm not that worried about it. It's one of the two, right? Because either I'm going to string out hard into a binding at the end and I want to make the erasure something crazy that they have to deal with, or they've already used their stuff by the time the combo's online, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree with that.
I mean, it's just it having a momentum out and me having no other momentum outs in the deck is probably the biggest thing. Plus, again, changing those zones high, low. Now they have to kind of hold both.
Yeah. It's a little harder to predict what you're doing. They gotta be ready for like the Needle Stab, because Needle Stab pumps itself, right? So if you decide to make it like I'll discard 2, it's gonna be like a 9 and then 12, 13, depending on how many assets you've got, and then you also discard to give the next 3 speed, and they're like, oh my god, what's coming next? They sell out to block the Needle Stab, then you're like, well, here's the 7 speed total erasure now. Yeah, I think that's pretty sick. Honestly, you have like a little more leeway there as far as attacks go now. Between the Capture Net and the Nebulous Stare, you now have like 8 really good pokes to just throw down on turn 2 that are like, if the Capture Net doesn't hit, it doesn't really matter. Like, it gets you the foundation down, it puts down their board, it taxes them a little bit on the low blocks. It's like okay. If anything, I think you could include like a couple more flow cards now. I think a 2 of Net Gun would be really sick.
Probably, yeah.
I think a
Get some
two
more
of
stun in there.
Yeah, I think now, especially now that the stairs are in here, the whiplash is just going to be way too hard to work. And then if you feel like you're just like not drawing your pokes enough, you could even just put in like 2 invincible clasp instead of the net guns. Just if you feel like you want more attacks that are really good to throw down on turn 2.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, but the net gun's like also good in that sense too, right? You throw it down on turn 2, you stun 2. You want to block this 3 mid for 3? It's like super annoying.
Yep. And if you're holding on to it and you got to block with it, it's got that great card pool response.
It does have a very, very, very good card pool response. So we honestly haven't really messed up our zones at all. So going into our foundations, we don't have to think about that a ton. So now speaking of going into our foundations, so this is where like I was putting this list together and I was like, this is really interesting because there's a lot of really, really sick damage pump under all, right? You know, we've got like the late riser for our super combo heavy deck, and now we've got like the prone to dry eyes. We have all these really sick ways to pump damage, but is that very necessary? Because Mei just has like that raw damage pump on face. So I feel like if anything, you're mostly looking to put a lot more speed on your moves with your stage.
Yeah, and I had prone in another version, or prone to dry eyes in another version of the deck, and I was finding, although it was like nice because it gave me something to do with foundation cards on a turn when I was trying to kill.
Right. I've got 9 cards in hand. Sure, I'll give all my moves +1 damage, but wait, they already all have 1,000,000 damage on them. I'm Hatsume Mei.
It felt like win more, right? Like so it just wasn't as necessary. Like you said, it wasn't as necessary to provide that damage pump, and speed pump is something that she kind of needs because I've been noticing the moves are very slow. Yeah, especially like early game when you're having to throw those moves down anyway just to draw your cards. Being able to make them a little less blockable is really, really nice. So that's kind of more so the route I went with a lot of the foundations I want to talk about. Namely the ones I have here are Snack Time and Talented Baker. I think both of these are insane in Mei. I was reading Snack Time and I was like, this is like prone to dry eyes, but with the ability that you actually want. Yeah, it is. I think that is 100% an excellent like putting it in. I mean, I probably would drop, like if I were dropping something, I'd probably drop closing in for it instead, because I think closing in is... Yeah,
since we can only close in half of our attack lineup now.
Yeah, whereas like now I think you just like add them in at like maybe a 4 of, right, as opposed to a 2 of, because I might as well.
I'm very, very down. We can just shove a bunch of snack times. I mean, okay, so we're at 53 cards now. If we wanted to get to the 60 range, after the babies, we actually want to get to 64, right? So we have a lot of leeway to just shove cards in right now and then just kind of look at where we are. Talented Baker, I feel the exact same way about. I just want a bunch of these in my deck. This card is so free for you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's actually just so free.
Absolutely.
You're down to see as many copies of this as opposed to Snack Time, where like you definitely need to see one, but it does have a little bit of diminishing returns. This is just, hey, every single attack +1 speed nonstop, literally nonstop. In the same vein, so I see you have Scout in the Forest in here. I love this card. I think this card is so freaking cool. I'm very, very glad this card is in your deck.
Yeah, that's actually what replaced prone, because I'm like, you know what I could really use if I'm feeling like I'm short an attack, I could use another attack, right? And
it still grabs everything but Nebula Stare, so that's super great. Yeah, that's super fine. I think the only thing I would debate on this card is if you ended up going the route of like the 2 clasp over the 2 net gun for just some more throw pokes, then I would probably consider cutting this card for something else. But I think with just 4 non-weapons, it's a fine 2 of.
Yeah.
However, I do have Plea Body here. This is also just +1 speed on every attack.
Yeah. So I mean that's so I want to be careful about too many 3s.
Yes.
In the deck, only because I'd rather not have too many on turn 1, right?
Yeah, we are. We do sure build like a 5-hand size character.
we are 5-hand size. So
yeah, we do have to respect that. I think it's a sweet 2 of routing you out to 4 3-diffs in your deck.
Yeah, no, with the bigger deck, it's definitely, and if I were to try to go back down to the small one, that's where it's like, do I do Plea Body or do I do Scouting? It's like, pick one of the 2.
Right. Right. So another thing, before we kind of move on, so we're just about, we're at 63 now. We also haven't really messed with our zones at all. They still look fantastic. Being able to play, being able to play Talented Baker in this deck definitely gives you more low blocks than the all symbol is used to having, which is pretty funny. As far as, let's kind of actually like pivot a little bit. Before we start making like the big looks in the foundations and talk about actions and assets. Normally I say this for last, but there are cards that I'm going to say cards. I more so mean card that I really, really want to put in your deck. I think Sugar Rush should be in here. Bottom line.
I think that if I remove the floating around my babies, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't.
Which
think,
I only have as a one of.
yeah. I think that there are better zeros to play, or just 8 zeros. Well, it would be 7 minus 1, right? But you don't need like a ton of zeros. But I was just thinking that like +1 damage on your with this character, you're just not worried about that, right? You're just not worried about that damage pump.
No, I think that she can definitely make good use of Sugar Rush. It's just that they use the same resource, right? And so
they do. Yes, that is very correct. Yeah, I think it's like a sick 2 of. It's like a sick 2 of.
Oh yeah.
Just because we are a 5-hander. We are a 5-hander,
oh, yeah.
and we should respect that. So a foundation that I also have in here is Confident Inventor. So I was looking at this card and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna put this in the side because it's got Mei's face on it, so we probably have to talk about it, right? And then I read it and I was like, this just gives +1 damage. Do I really care about that? But something kind of important that this card does do though, is if they do things like like getting rid of your babies somehow, right? Things like learning the standards to flip it is kind of one of the only ways, but it is kind of nice in that sense, right? Because it removes a foundation, right? So you get to remove your babies and then build it in next turn if they flip it with something like that. That probably makes it more of a sideboard card, unless you wanted to get like even more techie with your assets, like full pun intended, because you've already got these very cool one-ofs. I like both of these one-ofs a lot. I think we could potentially play Confident Inventor and then like a one-of Quick Creation and a one-of Tracking Device.
I think that with the it's definitely a sideboard card, right? Maybe one of in the main board, only because it's one of those things that maybe, that's the thing that bails you out game one when you don't know what you're going up against.
Right.
But it's definitely more of a, okay, I can put this into the deck now because I know I'm going to need it. Otherwise, the removing the foundation to add an asset from the discard pile, which, very cool, isn't necessarily... I mean, I guess it could get pro heroes in there pretty quickly if you...
I think being able to tutor out... I mean, I think being a foundation that can essentially act as a second copy of Pro Heroes to tutor out in those matchups where it's really good, I think that's a very strong interaction. I think that's a strong interaction. Yeah. And I mean, like, it is like, quote unquote diminishing returns, right? But it is still like a free 1 damage on our moves.
On some of them, right? Because I've only got Net Gun Surprise and Needle Stab, where it's a free 1.
Oh, that's true. These sure aren't techs. Yeah, never mind.
They
this card
sure
sucks.
aren't.
Never mind. This card sucks. This card stinks. One of though. Sick one of.
yeah. Well, that's just it. Like, right? Like, it's a good spicy one of, and then like put some more on the sideboard for that. Oh, people are messing with my babies. Stop messing with my babies.
Stop messing with my babies. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. As far as looking, so that does put us at 65 here. So we've pretty much arrived at that number that we've been trying to look for. As far as the other things in here, are you in love with them? Something like Quick Creation or Tracking Device? I think these cards are like okay. I think Quick Creation's a little better because it also has like a really messed up deadlock for you.
Yeah, that's the thing with Quick Creation is it has an absolutely messed up deadlock.
Super duper messed up. And like deadlock, so deadlock in all weapons is really weird because you have like Hero Killer, right? Which if you find just says they can't go to it or they will lose. They just will. Stun 2 on my whole turn. Yeah, like that's just it. That's just it. But we've only got 2 in here, and I like a little bit of a backup in the event that we don't see it. We've also got 4 Snack Time, but that's one that like they can work around a little bit sometimes.
I mean, the problem with Snack Time's deadlock is that it's doing more of what I already do at a cost I don't want to pay.
Flip a foundation is a little bit more of a cost when we are Hatsume Mei. Also, if they're playing like really popular symbols like chaos or water, a single irrefutable says this is not our deadlock thing anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas like hero killer and quick creation are pretty uninteractive unless they've got like specialist of sound for like minus speed on entry. It's really hard to mess with this card.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like I just don't know how many I would try to fit in.
I think I would just play one. I think it's just a fine one of,
Yeah.
if you're like seeing it and you feel like it's like super duper crazy, feel free to put a second in there maybe. But I think it's like okay as a one of. This card used to be like one of the best things about playing all symbol weapons, but then after losing Unwavering, this card's just a lot harder to play, just a lot more awkward to play. And like with 3 of these now, right? The thing is like if you bump like any of these like quick create to a 2 of, you now have like 4 of these like big difficulty assets, and you don't really ever want to draw like 2 of these at the same time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to like open USJ quick creation and then like 2 foundations.
Oh god, no.
Yeah, so you want to be a little bit timid with these expensive assets. Even though quick creation is really good to see in multiples.
Yeah.
You kind of have to pick your poisons there every now and then. So now I guess we can start kind of trimming the fat from our foundation lineup. We can still pretty much ignore block zones because they still look perfect. Is there anything that you think is just not pulling its weight in this lineup?
Oh man,
these are all pretty good cards.
Probably. I mean, closing in's probably the closest to not going to be pulling its weight.
Yeah, the only thing I really care about putting 2 speed on is, I mean, I guess it puts speed on Total Erasure and Binding Cloth, which like can be our finishers, but I just don't know if that's very necessary.
By the time Binding Cloth is coming in, the speed is not the issue.
Yeah, I mean it starts at 4. It can easily get bigger with the the Plea bodies, the Talented Bakers, the snack times. It's so easy for this thing to get faster.
I mean, I've almost, because the combo is basically pointless on that. I have been down to just put foundations into my card pool to get to the 7 cards.
It's like one of my favorite plays. I'm playing Void Weapon Stain 2 right now, and sometimes my turn is just foundation, form. This comes in with 3 speed. It's so funny, dude.
Yeah, enjoy.
Yeah. I think closing in could just go. I don't think that this card is like, you'd think flip for 2 speed is like such a great exchange rate, but we also again want to flip our foundations for Mei.
Exactly.
And we just have better ways to pump our speed. We just do. Yeah. We just do. So that puts us at our 64 number. I think snack time could be a 3 of. I think 4 might be a little bit excessive. I think with how much we draw, 3, we'll see at least 1. We'll see at least 1 by the time it's time to throw down.
Yeah, and for me, it's more about with that. Was the reason for 4 was like it's spam, right? Like
it is spam. Let's see, we've got 7, 11, 14, 17, 20. So we have a 20 spam and 15 non-spam lineup right now, which is a really good ratio, especially for a 5-hander. That is very good for a 5-hander. Do you want more zeros inside of your deck?
I mean, I wouldn't say no because I do like having a bunch of them. I mean, what are we at foundation count wise?
We're at 35. We've got 35 foundations. 20 of them are spams. 15 of them are non-spams, and we are at 63 cards. 63.
Like it could either be an acrobatic for, or putting up the can't be fixed by 1.
Yeah. I would definitely just put it can't be fixed by 1. Yeah. This card's just like too good.
It is. It's just too good.
Yeah. Are you happy with 8 zeros? Do you feel like you want more, or is 8 a good number for you?
I think this is where I would start for sure. With 8 zeros, seems fine to start.
Yeah.
Especially with all the 1s and the fact that I don't have anything less than a 3 for control checks. I can still build out quite a few foundations, even if I don't. I could safely build out at least 3 foundations. Possibly 4.
Yeah, I think 8 is a good number if you're like not a 7-hander, right? And you're not like 7-handers, like they really want to draw like that perfect 4 build early game to start protecting themselves. You're not like super pressed if you don't put a bunch of zeros on the board very quickly. But if you do end up wanting more, your finished and acrobatic there are very, very, very solid pieces.
Oh yeah, no, your finished actually has some fun interactions in this deck with Needle Stab, if you do have 2 in hand.
yeah, no, that card's like really good. Also, like very relevant deadlock text, very relevant deadlock text.
Oh yeah.
So I guess the last question here is, of these 3 other things that I've got in here, do you feel like any of these are any better than what you're doing with your non-spams?
I mean, it's hard to get better than Specialist of Sound.
Yeah, honestly, I could see a 4th Specialist of Sound even. I think it's just like some of the best speed reduction ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Would you be down to put Daunting to a 2 of to make a 4th Specialist?
I mean, sure. Why not? Like,
let's do it. I mean, we still have a very generous spam count. We still have a very generous spam count. Specialist just really good. I don't really see anything else in your foundations that like should be a 4 of. Chivalrous is very good, but 3 is fine. There's nothing you're super trying to protect in your deck, right? You know, it's not like you've got like this broken foundation that you always want on your board that you need Chivalrous protecting. You're not like you're just not a deck like that.
No, that's kind of it with Chivalrous. At the time that I first built this, I only had 3 anyway. I have 4 now, but like I had 3, and I was like, 3.
And that card doesn't need cost the monies.
Oh man, I'm glad I got it.
I really like the one of charging 1 for all. I think that's really sick.
Well, I mean, that's also another reason when you have the really small deck, those 1-ofs become more consistent.
This is true. This is true.
So that's why you know, try it at the 60, and then if I want to try to having some fun with it, see cutting down some stuff again and going back to the 40 the 46 card.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is cool, but I do think that your 46 card deck with 4 needle stabs would go very hard. I think that would go very hard. And there it is, guys. That's our all symbol Mei deck. Big thanks again to Brian for supporting me and letting me help him out with this build. And of course, if you want your own experience like this, my Patreon is going to be linked down below, and you can check out all the different video commission tiers I have. While you're down there, I would appreciate some feedback too via the like button or comments. And of course, if you want to support the channel more, you can hit the join button to become a channel member and gain access to some cool perks when I stream on YouTube. Above all else though, thanks just for making it to the end of this video. I appreciate it, and I hope I can see you in the next one.